That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Halloween Kills spoiler-filled review. It is Friday, October the 15th, 2021, 12:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's all about timing. Gotta the time, boom, the timing there. This is interesting, folks. I am really looking forward to talking with you all today about how I feel about this movie. I saw it at an advanced screening in downtown Toronto a couple of nights ago. I watched it last night on Peacock. But Dave, you live in Canada! Yes, that's right. Thank you, VPN. I needed to watch it twice. I did. And I have some very interesting things to say on the matter. This is a spoiler-filled review. If you are new to my channel, if you're just tuning in, if you're tuning in after the fact and you're not watching this live and you're new, I'm not a movie reviewer, so don't expect that you're gonna get me reviewing movies here on the channel. I don't do that. I don't have anything against it. It's just not my, I'm not a movie reviewer. I leave that to the people who do it and do it very well. So it's not something that I do here on the channel. I talk about movies, I talk about whatever I want to talk about, but I certainly don't review movies on the regular. But I usually save my one review, if you want to call it that, for the big Halloween movie that releases. I did it in 2018, and I'm doing it here today. Now, I have been asked if I'm going to do a similar epic review for Kills like I did for Halloween 2018. It's on my channel. You can check it out. I think it's got over 60,000 views. It's called the Epic Halloween 2018 Review or something. And the answer to that is no. That was a very specific set of circumstances. Number one, there was a lot of nostalgia, a lot of hype. My whole channel up to that point was leading towards that moment. And I was fortunate enough to have seen the movie 6 weeks before pretty much everybody else, because I saw it at the world premiere at TIFF here in Toronto. So I had 6 weeks to sort of create that. You know, I had a lot of time to create that. I didn't see the movie till the other night, so I just don't have the time to go into that depth with that kind of a presentation. However, I do want to talk about it and in my typical Dave McRae way, and dive deep and really get into the nitty gritty and tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, mixed thoughts on things. Now that I've seen the movie twice. I saw it at a screening, like I said, and saw it last night in the comfort of my own home. So let me start here. Now, for a lot of you, you will already know this, but you know, if you have a YouTube channel, you know that you gain new subscribers all the time, you gain new viewers all the time. So I'm just going to preface this review by saying this. I said it yesterday. There's a video on my channel where I kind of isolated me talking about this, but it's very important. So for those of you that may not know, I'm a Halloween purist. And essentially that just means that I am all about preserving the integrity of the original intent of the Michael Myers character. My favorite movie is the original film. I like Halloween too, and it's still my favorite sequel. But certainly the original intention was to not have any sequels. It was just a one and done movie. I love that aspect about the shape, about Michael preserving the mystique, the enigma, the ambiguity of the character, the mood, the atmosphere, the lighting, the visual aesthetic being just as much a character as everything else. I talked about that yesterday. I'm a Halloween purist. It doesn't mean I can't appreciate the later sequels, some of them, some moments in some of them, in a vacuum. Like, that's a cool shot, that's a nice moment, but overall, I really don't like anything past 2. And I can appreciate 4. 4 is fun, but you know, really at the end of the day, I'm a Halloween purist. So when I watch a Halloween movie, naturally, instinctually, I can't fucking help it, okay? As much as it might annoy the hell out of some of you, I can't help it. That's what I do. I'm simply, I look for those things. Even though I'm not naive in thinking that I'm going to get exactly, the same type of style of horror that you got in the 70s, certainly what Halloween was, which was more about suspense. Yeah, it's kind of like, suspense. Suspense, the mood, the atmosphere, the Hitchcockian sort of kind of presentation. No, I mean, it's 2021. We got to entertain the kiddies, right? You got to have blood, guts, and gore and all that. I get all that. So over the last 3 years, I've been really subverting or suppressing my expectations. I saw Halloween 2018. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's competently made. It's watchable. It has its moments. But I didn't think it was a very good Halloween movie. I thought it was a good modern horror, but a lot of the Halloween-y things for me were missing. Those were not 40-year-old fanboy expectations. I think when you say that you're making a direct sequel to the original and the original only, there's certain things about that movie that should be carried over in terms of the visual aesthetic, character continuity, all that kind of stuff. When I say character continuity, I'm not talking about characters. I'm talking about how characters behave. There were certain things in terms of Michael's MO that we just didn't see in terms of the presentation of Myers and all that kind of stuff. You've heard me talk about this before. So I wasn't a huge fan. I left TIFF being very disappointed. That coverage is all on my channel, just YouTube, Dave McRae, Halloween, world premiere, all that kind of stuff. It will pop up if you want to check it out. It's 3 years old now, but if you want to check it out, it's there. So I was disappointed. Bruce, my friend Bruce, who you guys know, who also works in the industry here in Canada, he liked 18, and he liked Halloween Kills. He liked Halloween Kills better than 18. But it's important to preface this, that statement, I should say, by saying that Bruce is also not a gigantic horror fan. Now, we love Bruce, right? He co-wrote, co-directed, co-produced It's Me, Billy with me. You guys know Bruce. He's a great guy, film savvy, knows his shit, works in the film industry. He's amazing. But he's a casual horror fan, or certainly Halloween fan, right? He appreciates it, but he's not like us. He doesn't get into the sweaty weeds and like, oh, holy shit. So you mean that when he walks over here... I'm making fun of myself too, guys. Calm down. He's not like that, okay? Okay? He's like that with other things, like Marvel and things like that, right? But not Halloween or horror. So he was going in the other night, same with the world premiere at 18, being a casual sort of viewer, not knowing all the nitty-gritty, all that kind of shit, right? So the other night when we went to watch Kills at the advanced screening, for the last 3 years, and you've heard me talk about this on my channel, I've been really tempering my expectations. I said to you that, whether you like this movie or not really depends on what kind of Halloween fan you are and, what you want from a Halloween movie. That was my estimation. That was my feeling on it. Now, I also read the script. I was able to, I'm not the only one, but I read the script, so I did know largely what was going to happen. Some of you have thought, well, why would you ruin that for yourself? Listen, I don't know if it's people are different, okay? For some people, it would ruin things for them. For me, it doesn't. It could be because I'm a filmmaker. It could be because when I watch a movie, I look at films through maybe a bit of a different lens, no pun intended, than the average fan or moviegoer. That's entirely possible. But it didn't ruin it for me, because reading something on paper and watching it translate onto the screen can be two different experiences. But I did kind of know what to expect. So this could also be the reason why I had the immediate response I did after watching it for the first time. So I went in, not lowering my expectations. I went in with realistic expectations. I know this is high body count. I know this is blood, guts, and gore and carnage. I know that if I was hired to make this movie, I would not want to do that. So, I'm a Halloween purist, right? So I know, but I know what to expect. I'm not naive. I'm 42 years old. I get it. It's 2021. Come on, kids. Wait. I get it. I understand it. So I really tempered my expectations. And when I walked in and I sat down and I left the theater 2 hours later, roughly, I found myself really enjoying the ride. And I said to you guys that I'm going in and I'm treating this as like a ride. because I don't want to get caught up. I don't want to overthink. I don't want to over-intellectualize, because as a Halloween purist, right, we can get very, well, they're not doing that right. I think that maybe, that we can do that shit, right? And, I was like, I don't want to do that for this. I did it for 18. I don't want to do it for this. I don't know if I'm going to like this more or like it better. I don't know. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to pretend I'm at a ride at Universal Studios. The bar comes down. I'm like, dee, 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 ha. And I go into the thing and I take whatever they give me. That's how I treated this. I did my very best to do that. And so when the movie began, and of course that score and stuff, I was like, all right, we're in. Because John Carpenter's score was great in this. And shout out to Cody Carpenter, Daniel Davies, of course, as well. And so I'm there and I'm watching the movie, and at the end of the movie, I leave, and Bruce and I did our first reaction thoughts from Dundas Square in Toronto. It's on my channel. I think it has over 12,000 views already, which is insane. Our first impression thoughts. And my first impression was I had fun watching this movie. I had fun watching this movie. More fun than I did watching Halloween 2018. Is that because it is a better movie than 2018? Not necessarily. And something that I've learned, because and I learned this last night because I watched Halloween Kills again last night, but watching it through a bit of a different lens in preparation for doing the show today. So I've almost discovered something, it's very strange. It's a very strange, surreal experience, because I did not enjoy Halloween Kills as much as I did the first time, the second time. I didn't enjoy it as much as the second time. And there's a reason for that. I truly believe there's a reason for that we can measure. But that first time, just watch that video from Dundas Square in Toronto. I'm like, you know what? I had fun. Sure, it's not perfect, but they did this, and this. But I had fun watching it. I had fun. The flashback, well, we'll get into that. And I think the second time is because I was watching it through more of a critical lens, right? More of a purist's lens, which is naturally my instinct to do. And so those flaws that I did notice the flaws the first time I was watching, because, listen, what's a flaw to one may not be a flaw to another. And I truly believe that look, as I've said many times, making movies is really difficult. Okay. And, critiquing another's work can be hard, because the amount of effort that goes into it. And I certainly have a better appreciation for that effort, having just done, It's Me, Billy. So, it's very hard. It's very hard. So I'm a firm believer it's not what you say, it's how you say it, generally speaking. And I think, what I'm about to say here is going to be mature and respectful. And they are just my opinions after all, but I believe they're informed opinions as a Halloween purist and a Halloween fan. So when I watched the movie for the first time the other day, I enjoyed it, as I've just said. But those flaws, what people are, thinking are flaws, I did see them. And I think some people interpreted my tweets incorrectly. I tweeted very favorably of the movie, although I tried to be nuanced about it, because that was my first impression. I had fun because I tempered my expectations so much, that I allowed myself to just enjoy what they gave me, rather than going, and when I did notice those things come in where that little thing inside me wanted to go, what the fuck? I was like, no, shh, just go back there. It's not happening. Just go back there and just enjoy the, woo, okay. I did that, and I found myself having a great time. Now, you may say to yourself, well, why would you have to do that? Because I'm being realistic. Yes, I understand that, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be, they should do this, they should do that, they should do this, they should do that. They're not going to do it, folks. It's been 40 years, and 12 films. It hasn't happened. They're not going to start now, right? Everybody's different. Everybody has a different creative vision. There's reasons the studios want to do things and not do things, and they got to appeal to a general movie-going audience and not just the fans. And it's a whole, a lot of times these decisions are made by committee, and it's a whole thing. And so I'm just like, I'm not going to go in expecting this. I expected it with 18. I'm not going to go in expecting it here. And I didn't, and I had a better time. Now, when I watched it the second time, there are certain things that stood out to me that I was like, I don't like this, because now I'm watching it through more of the Dave McRae that you know lens, and really sort of being not being overly harsh, but watching it and going, yeah, but I will say this, even after the second viewing, I still think I enjoyed the experience of watching this movie more than I did the first film. But I actually think the first film is dare I say, maybe a better movie. Not necessarily a better Halloween movie, but I think in terms of pacing and structure and execution, I think, and again, my views can change. I think it's a better film overall. But let me dive into the nitty-gritty now. Now that that's out of the way and you understand where I'm coming from in regards to this, let's dive into this, okay? So what are my likes of this movie? Again, this is second watch stuff, right? Things can change. I have a big thing here with all my shit on it. Woo! Don't worry, it's actually not that long. What are my likes of this movie? Well, something that I said that was largely missing from the 2018 film was the visual aesthetic, having the right tone, the right mood, and the right atmosphere for a Halloween film. I've always said that and again, I'm thinking about the first movie only. That's the only one from the original series that's canon. It's so much a part of it's arguably the most important character in a Halloween film is the visual aesthetic, the lighting, the mood, and the atmosphere, right? That arguably is the most important character. And that feeling, that style, that look was missing from the 2018 film by and large. There's certain moments I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But by and large, right? So I just, and maybe that didn't bother you, but I'm giving you my thoughts. You can start your own fucking channel and give your thoughts. But Dave, but it didn't bother me. It bothered me, I should say, that those things weren't there. And in this movie, I liked the tonal shift, the shift in tone in terms of the lighting and the way things looked. It was cooler. It was darker. It felt more like autumn in the Midwest. There wasn't as much, yes, when you go inside into the Myers house and things like that, but the light sources, I get it. But in terms of outside on the streets and things like that, things felt cooler, darker, more of a that whitish daylight balanced sort of kind of moon feel. Whereas in the 18 film, there was a lot of tungsten, a lot of warm, even on the streets, right? A lot of warm, sort of yellowy tungsten kind of vibe to it. Now, to the average fan, you might be thinking, I don't even think about that shit. And that's fine. But we Halloween purists do. And there's specific reasons why we do. You may think it's over sweaty and over nerdy, and that's fine, but we can justify it and we can measure it and tell you why, and it is what it is. But those things are important to me, and that wasn't there. But I did see that in this movie, so I liked that. I liked the shift in tone very much. I thought that the way it looked and the way it was lit was the right way to go. I wish the 18 film was lit like that. The other thing I really like, which I think everybody is just losing their minds over, because I think it is done very, very well, is the flashback. And, they did such a tremendous job on the flashback. What an amazing piece of, just the set deck and the lighting, and I believed it was 1978. Yes, in terms of the production value and the quality of the image, yes, it looks modern. It looks like, a period piece shot today, right? But I believed it was 78, just as I'm going to believe it's the 50s or the 60s. I forget which decade it takes place in when I watch West Side Story, right? You know what I mean? The new one, not the old one. The old one was actually shot back then, but the new one, right? And just as I believe that it's, the 30s when I watched The Green Mile or something, right? I mean, you know, it's yes, it's modern, but you believe you're in that world. And so with this, I believed I was there. I believed that this was a natural, organic extension of that evening. And I liked it when I first watched it. Watching it through a very kind of just casual, almost like I was watching it how Bruce was watching it, right? He's kind of casual, not thinking, not going, well, that didn't make sense because of Halloween. He's not doing that, right? Because he's not like, you know, he's not that sweaty. And so I, on first watch, I was kind of like at his level. And I was like, oh, this is really good. But I still felt the same way about the flashback watching it last night the second time. Really liked it. Really liked it. You know, it was really, really well done. And I do believe there are, and again, there's a spectrum, okay? There's a spectrum. It's not black and white. I do believe there are more, although that's not saying a whole lot, but there are a few more genuine moments of some tension and some suspense in kills over 18. Not a lot. Okay, it's not a lot, but certainly there's a bit more. There's a bit more to have some fun there as a viewer and as a Halloween fan. And the flashback was one of those moments. I mean, not overdone, not crazy, where you're like, oh my God, oh my God. You know, I mean, you know, it's not like that, right? It's a spectrum, right? There's a large sort. There's degrees for which you can draw out suspense and build tension and all that kind of stuff, right? But the Myers house looked fantastic. I believe that was the Myers house. That was all shot on a soundstage, by the way. And the way they built the outside and the street and the house and the way they lit it and stuff, tremendous job. I mean, my hat goes off to David Gordon Green and the crew, and you know, your set designers and your grips, your gaffer, your key. I mean, everybody that was involved. Your entire crew did such an amazing job at making a Halloween purist like me smile. And I really liked it. I think it's still my favorite part of the movie, to be honest with you. And I think it's going to be most people's favorite part of the movie, especially if you're a Halloween purist. So I thought the flashback was great. And like I said, and I love when the officer walks in and goes, Hawkins, there's a dog here. Like, I love seeing that moment from the 78 film, but from a different perspective. I mean, not exact. No, I shouldn't say that, actually. Seeing the dog, because we never saw the dog in the 78 film, and we didn't need to. It actually works better when we don't see it, because that's theater of the mind, right? That's theater of the mind. I mean, that's part of what theater of the mind is, I should say. And so we didn't need to see it. And for 40 years, we've just imagined, Jesus, how mangled is that dog? What does it look like? Holy shit, because we've never seen it. We don't know what it looks like. I don't fucking know what it looks like. I don't know. Well, now we kind of see it. You know what I mean? You know, do we need that? No, but it's cool. It shows you the attention to detail. Like, you're like, oh yeah, that dog would still be there. That makes sense. That thing that smashes Judith Myers' window, I think it was hers, right? Is there. And as we're seeing the cops approach the house and we're tracking backwards in the room, we see that still there. I like that. I like that shit. That goes to, I mean, they paid real attention to not just reconstructing the Myers house in terms of layout, because that's easy, but in terms of seeing, you know, little details like that would still be there. I mean, what we're seeing in the flashback is only like, what, maybe half an hour later, an hour later. I mean, it's the same night. So all of that stuff is fresh. That dog should be there. That thing that broke the window should be there. You know, other little things like that should be there, which is really, really cool. Now, the one thing I noticed on my second watch, and again, this is sweaty. I'm doing this because I usually have my glasses on, but I don't. Sweaty Halloween nerd, but I didn't see this. Dave McRae, is I noticed that across the street, and maybe I'll have to watch it again. Maybe it is there. There wasn't a tree there that would have been the tree. This is such sweaty stuff. Holy fuck. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. But, you know, we nerds notice this stuff. There was at the beginning of the original film in 1978, right? The first shot we see is the camera coming out from behind a tree and, you know, seeing the Myers house. Now, you could perceive that as maybe it wasn't a tree. Maybe it was just coming out of the darkness. You know, it was just a transition from one moment to the next and it's not a tree, but I've always seen it as a tree. Myers kind of peers out from a tree and starts walking towards the house. And I don't think there was a tree there, but it's not a big deal at the end of the day, but I didn't notice there was a little something there. But love the flashback. I thought it was very well done. And like some people were saying before the movie was released, the flashback serves a purpose. And dancing around in that flashback can be tricky. It was like, oh my God, they're playing in that sandbox. What are we going to do? Because it's just as easy to fuck up as it is to kind of make it not too bad. And they kind of made it not too bad. It's actually not bad. They did a really good job. But it's just as easy to fuck up, and they didn't. So I'm impressed with that. And they extended it. They made the flashback connect to the larger story that's going on with Hawkins. And Hawkins, of course, as we know, from what I've seen, I believe he accidentally shoots his buddy. I think is what's happened there. And then Loomis comes in and says, did he kill again? Take a swig of my Jack Daniels. And I thought I thought they did a great job. It looks like there's some deep fake stuff going on. Not a lot. There's something going on there. Now, the actor who played him, as we know, I don't even know if he's an actor. I think he was just somebody on the crew who they got to kind of stand in as that, who looked like Loomis. But I think there's some digital work going on there. I think there is, for sure. You know what? For the purposes of what they were doing, it's fine. It's fine. And I don't think the flashback overstayed its welcome. Had it gone on, had the flashback been longer, and I know some people are saying I would have loved to have seen like a whole movie in this universe. That would have been amazing. And I'm like, yeah, like that fanboy in me, that Halloween Paris. Sure. I mean, that kind of like, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. That would be kind of cool. But the longer you stay in that world, the more chances there are to fuck it up. And this flashback almost plays like a 10-minute Halloween fan film with really high production value. I mean, that's really kind of almost what it plays like. And they do such a good job that there's part of me that's like, oh, as much as I want this to continue, I don't. I think, you know what? Get out while the thing is good, and you've done a good, oh cool. All right. That's really cool. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about the flashback. I really enjoyed it. The attention to detail, the having it have value to the story later on. And it didn't bother me as somebody that is a huge proponent of the original film being a standalone, a one-off, which that was the intention, and being perfectly fine with that. I don't mind what they did. So I thought it was very well done, and that the mood and the atmosphere and all that stuff really looked like 1978. Great work. Great work. Now, when we jump to 2018, some of the likes that I like too is I like that there was that shift. It didn't quite look the same lighting or the same mood, of course, in 1978, but it doesn't need to be. But I like that it still was a different look, a different visual aesthetic, different lighting than 2018. Again, more cooler colors. Not that there weren't some tungsten warm shit there too. There was, but I just mean it was cooler and it felt moodier. The streets felt moodier. And I like that. That's shit that I look for, right? And I still felt that way on second watch. So I like that. I did. And the kills, the high body count, didn't bother me, but it's because I knew this was what it was going to be. Usually these things should bother Halloween purists, right? They should. We're all about, mood and atmosphere and theater of the mind, a little, pompous, fuck you and your little blood, but we value that. We value that old school type of horror. I mean, that's how we treated It's Me, Billy, right? Of course we had good reason to. I mean, that's really kind of what the original film was too. But anyway, I digress. But I love that style. I always will. I always have. I always will. But I knew that this wasn't going to be that. So I walked in not thinking, I mean, why, there shouldn't have been a moment in the theater for me on first watch where I'm like, I didn't need to see that. I didn't need to see that. Why? I have no one to blame but myself. It's called Halloween Kills for like, 2 years now. We know it's going to be blood, guts, and carnage. The subtitle to Venom could very well be for Halloween Kills. Let there be carnage. You know what I mean? I mean, we know this. So it would be just, I have no one to blame but myself if I'm pissed off about it. So I knew that going in. But with the way that it was hyped and the way that it was like, this is gonna be the fucking like, holy shit, this is like off the chain. You haven't seen anything yet. I saw everything in the trailers. No, you didn't see shit in the trailers. This is like, I'm thinking, I'm expecting like Rambo and Commando joining forces and tearing shit up. I didn't get that. Yes. Is this high body count? Yes. Is there blood, guts, and gore? Yes. Is there carnage? Sure, absolutely. For a Halloween film, absolutely. Yes. It is for sure. But I think I was expecting more. I was expecting a higher body count with how it was hyped up. And I walked out of the theater going, well, that wasn't that bad. Sure, for a Halloween film, yes. But for whatever reason, I was expecting like, no, Halloween film or not, this is like what? And I'm like, no, it feels like I just watched a gory Friday the 13th movie. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like in terms of the body count and all that kind of stuff. And that's not throwing shade at the movie. That's actually, maybe that's kind of a compliment. Maybe it's a good thing it wasn't more than what it was. Do you know what I mean? But the kills didn't bother me. I really liked the kill with the couple in the home with the drone. And that was just vicious. And when she was watching, I believe her husband was already dead, but she was like alive, barely, but alive. And she was watching Michael take all these knives and stabbing him in the back and shit. And almost as if he's like testing which ones, enter flesh the best or something, and then he takes one and he just walks out like it's, not a big fucking deal. And I love the way that they never racked focus. I don't believe they did. So they were on her, like the camera was over here. She was in focus. We saw her ear and her shoulder, and we kind of see what's going on in the background there, but we don't pull focus to then bring them into focus to see it more clearly. I like that they didn't do that. I like the creative choice that they didn't do that because it keeps it like almost as if we're seeing it through the eyes of her. Even though it's not a POV shot, we could think that she might have that type of vision because she's in shock. Maybe she has poor vision anyway, whatever, right? Like I like that it's just kind of there. There's this emotional disconnect, and I like, it was cold. It was very cold, and I like that. And again, the lighting and whatnot, I mean, it's darker in terms of the tone and the feel and the look, and I just liked it better. So I appreciated that. And the rest of the kills, same thing. I wasn't bothered by it really at the end of the day. So I liked that. And, I really liked, again, those few moments of suspense. Like I think the best moment of suspense, something I also really liked, was when Lindsay was being chased. I think that's probably, in terms of any stalking or suspense, that's probably the best example of that in the movie. And it's, even that's not like, whoa, off the holy fuck. No. It's relative. I get that. But I remember first watching it as a casual Halloween fan trying to be in that zone. I really liked it, and I liked it even as a Halloween purist. I appreciated that moment. I thought there was some genuine suspense there. There was some probably the most tense moment actually in the movie is probably actually there. Because it's quiet and the soundtrack is just like, dun, 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 dun. It's just kind of, and you hear like the elements and you hear his breathing. That's Nick Castle, by the way. He did all the breathing in the film. And you hear that and the shape is just kind of there looking around. And I like the way it's lit. I like the way it looks. Would I have done a few things a bit differently? Sure. I mean, maybe I would have tweaked this, lit it more like this or whatever. But at the end of the day, these are creative choices that it's not like it didn't work. I love the wide shot where you see Lindsay on the bottom left of the frame, kind of at the bottom of the hill, hiding, trying to, and the shape is off to the right up on the, on top of the hill. And he's kind of just looking around. I'm like, oh, this is really good. Like, I wish we would have gotten more of that. I wish we would have gotten any of that in Halloween 18. Even a scene like that in 18 would have actually improved the Halloween feel for me. So I really appreciated that scene. I like that scene a lot, actually. Probably maybe my favorite scene in the movie outside of the flashback, perhaps. Because again, it feels like Halloween. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that people have to understand that, you know, it sounds ridiculous, but the way, and I sound like a sweaty, spoiled little nerd, but the way it is shot, the way it looks, the aesthetic, the lens choices, you know, the way that light and shadow is utilized is just as much a character in a Halloween movie than anything else. And when you remove that from a Halloween movie, it's really noticeable. I don't ever hear people, by and large, saying, well, this wasn't really lit like a Friday the 13th movie. Oh, this didn't really lit like an Elm Street movie. You know, by and large, you don't really hear people talking about that when it comes to Elm Street, because I don't think it's as important in Elm. I think it's important to keep Freddy in shadow, but in terms of the aesthetic and the look and you know, I you know what I mean? But with Halloween, it's so important. You notice it when it's not there. You notice it when it's not there. So that was a scene that I actually really appreciated and really liked. And I love the Myers house. I think they did a great job, even in present day, the way it looks. Yes, it looks a little soundstagey in terms of like back lot, because not everything was on a soundstage. When they're just driving around or whatever, they actually are out on the streets. But yeah, it did look a little sort of produced, for lack of a better word, like we're kind of on a soundstage, but I believed it. I mean, look, I mean, if I had the money to create something like that, I would be completely satisfied with the end result, having it look like that. I have no issues believing that this was out on the street and not in a building. I mean, you know what I mean? It looked great. They lit it really well. I don't know if there was any sort of, maybe some green screen composite. I don't know how many homes or how much of the environment around the home was practical, was actually there, like the neighbors' houses and the houses across the street and all that kind of stuff, or if it's just a matter of camera tricks. You know, they're shooting one way on the street, but when they shoot the other way at the house, it's inside, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure. Maybe that'll be on the Blu-ray when it's released, but certainly I believed it. And I liked the Myers house a lot. Let's talk about the humor. The humor for me in this movie, it's there, but it landed better for me. For me, I didn't mind it. I mean, there was a few little lines where I'm like, I don't think we necessarily need to do that. But overall, I appreciated the fact that the humor didn't bother me. So I'm not going to say I liked the humor, although you know, when little John walks by the mirror and he's like, oh, you know, I admit I laughed because, you know, it was just kind of cute. Like, it was just it's like, okay, that's kind of funny. I didn't mind it. It wasn't cringy humor. It wasn't, because humor is all about timing, right? Comedy is about timing. And if the timing is not there, even off by a little bit, then it throws the whole thing off, you know? So, I didn't mind that. Yeah, so I think there are some other things. Oh, and the soundtrack. I loved the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack in 18 was more prominent. I think it was more noticeable. The soundtrack in this movie is kind of more in the background. But if you pay attention to each scene that has that score, it's beautiful. Like, they did another fantastic job. I thought the score was great. Really, really, really well done. Really, really well done. He just fucking knocks it out of the park each and every time. So I appreciated, loved the flashback, loved the flashback, loved the shift in tone, really appreciated the scene with Lindsay, loved the look of the Myers house, loved the look of Myers, loved the mask. I think the mask looks great. I think there's some genuine, really nice moments, shots of Michael in the mask. Yes, we saw a lot of him, which I'll talk about in the dislikes, but certainly I really appreciated, though, in certain moments, the way he was lit and the way they showed the mask. I liked when they came to the Myers house with Lonnie. I like the way everything looked in the Myers house. It's like, yeah, I like the way this is lit. Good job, guys. This is really, really nice. You know, and it kind of made me feel kind of 78-ish, you know? So I liked all that too. And I actually liked, what's his face? I forget his first name now. I think his last name's Longstreet, if I'm not mistaken. The guy that played Lonnie. I'm just watching Midnight Mass right now, and he's in that, and he's tremendous in that. And so I recognize him when I watch this movie. I'm like, oh, that's the guy that plays the guy in Midnight Mass. And I thought he was great. I actually really liked his portrayal of Lonnie. Lonnie might have been, because I think he's a good actor. He's very believable. He's believable at making you feel empathy for him, almost sorry for him in some ways. He's got an endearing, the way he portrays his characters, and maybe it's just because he's portraying these types of characters. I felt empathetic towards Lonnie. Like, he seemed like a sweet guy. You know, he was one of my favorite characters in this movie in terms of feeling an emotional connection to a character. I will say that for sure. So I liked him a lot too. Okay, so let's go on to my dislikes now, and again, I'm doing this on the fly, so if there's other things that come up with my likes, and you know, I might bounce around. But let's go to my dislikes. So I noticed all of this. When I first watched the movie, but I was trying to keep myself on track by watching it from a certain point of view because I wanted to enjoy the experience like a ride. I didn't want to walk out of there disappointed. I knew there would be other opportunities for me to look at it through a bit of a different lens, right? Which I did last night. So let's talk about the hospital. Let's talk about the subplot at this hospital. And again, I say this with all due respect. You know, making movies is hard. And I do understand what they were going for. I do understand, you know, how important I still, and this is just my opinion only, okay? This is my opinion only. I still have trouble believing this was and I'm ready to be proven wrong, but I have trouble believing that this was the original intention from inception to create this really big theme, because it's really no longer subtext, really. This really big this real driving theme in these films about trauma and people and the evil in the world and how we're treating each other in the world. And listen, horror movies have been telling social commentary for decades. I mean, it's part of, not all horror movies do. Some are just A, B, C, D, and that's just it. But having a social commentary about us as human beings and society and the world and how we treat each other is nothing new. They've been doing that for, I was going to say millennia, for decades. And if it's done right and it's done really well, you may not even realize it because it's so under the radar that it's affecting you subconsciously rather than consciously. However, there are some films that are very overt. And I just have trouble believing this was the original intention because it feels very much a driving force of Jamie Lee Curtis. We know that she's a social activist herself. We know she's very vocal about shit. And I've always said it felt to me that she needed, in order to come back on board, she needed something that she felt really excited and passionate about. She liked the script, sure, but can we really focus this angle on it about Laurie's trauma and generational trauma and how it affects the town and this, and you know, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Maybe that was the plan from the beginning, but it wouldn't surprise me if David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were like, oh, sure, yeah, we weren't planning on going like that, you know, hard into the paint on it. But sure, if it meant getting Jamie Lee on board, then they're going to do it. Now, I have no evidence to suggest that's what happened, but you really feel that picking up. And sometimes it doesn't feel organic to me. It feels like I just, you know, so the hospital scene, there's a lot of stuff, like I really appreciate what they're trying to do. And I mean that, but I didn't believe a lot of the performances at the hospital. Some of the acting felt overselling. Some of the lines felt, it was a little too exposition-y. I know that's not a word. But it felt like, you know, people have often said that they say the line "evil dies tonight" too many times. They do. I counted, I think it's about 4 or 5 outside of the chanting, "Evil dies tonight, evil." There's about 4 or 5, because I think we first hear it from Marion Chambers at the bar. We hear Tommy say it, I think, twice. We hear Brackett say it. And then somebody else says it, I think. Sure, it felt it's almost becoming like just the way everybody was saying that it didn't, I don't know, it just didn't feel authentic to me. It felt more like a punchline, more like a the other thing that I didn't think was necessary from a writing standpoint is how many times, and believe it or not, watch the film again, how many times somebody refers to the fact that it's been 40 years. It's said a lot in this movie. Tommy says it at the bar. Brackett says it when he's talking to Barker. Tommy says it again when he's talking to Laurie. Karen says it a couple of times. Cameron says, listen, for 40 years. Like, it felt like we know this. I understand saying it once, but I don't think it was necessary to say it as many times as we did. It almost felt like they were turning to the camera and saying, in case you didn't know, it's been 40 years. It just felt overdone. It felt like there were certain lines that were asked of these actors to say that didn't feel that you would talk like that. You would naturally speak like that. It felt very much, not to this degree, but the only example I could think of off the top of my head is the Star Wars prequels, right? Where some of the dialogue, like there's a scene in Revenge of the Sith, for you Star Wars nerds out there, where, and I'm paraphrasing, but Natalie Portman says something to the effect of, it's on Mustafar, it's at the end, and she's talking to Anakin, and she says something to the effect of, you're going down a path I cannot follow. Like, she says something like that. I think she says cannot. Maybe she says can't. Anyway, it's just the way it was said. You're going down a path I can't follow. You know, let's say she says it like that. It's like nobody says it. Like, you wouldn't talk like that. It felt very, like, it's not quite Shakespearean, but it's like, it's dirty English Shakespearean. Like, it seems like it's just, people don't talk like that. And there was a bit of that in this film where it felt just kind of overdone. Overselling it. And I had trouble sort of believing the performances a little bit. The acting's not bad. It's not terrible. You know, I didn't walk out of the theater going, well, that was a train wreck. I didn't think that at all. And I still didn't think it was a train wreck after my second viewing. But I did feel that there's certain lines I didn't really believe. You know, and unfortunately, the legacy characters just kind of get lost. You know, I really do. It was fun seeing them again. It was fun to see them back. But we also have really no perspective on how long they've known each other. And you know, Tommy recognizes Karen, but when he walks into the hospital room to speak with Laurie, you know, it's like, Laurie. And she's like, Tommy? I mean, is this the first time we're seeing them in 40 years? Sorry, is this the first time they're seeing each other in 40 years? Or did they just have lunch like 3 weeks ago? Like, we don't know. We don't have that context and that perspective. So I don't know, as an audience, I don't know how, you know, emotional I should feel about this quasi reunion, like, or this weird sort of reunion. You know, for me as a writer, when I want to introduce legacy characters again, and these are characters that have huge emotional impact and nostalgia to a certain fan base, and I know these characters haven't seen each other in a long time, I want to allow their reunions to breathe. I want that moment to breathe so the audience can feel the nostalgia, can feel, wow, they're looking at each other for the first time in 40 years. And look, I understand that you may not have time to do that, and you may not have time to do that for every reunion. I get that. But with Tommy and Laurie, it just felt a little quick, a little shoehorned in, a little dismissive. I wanted like, maybe it should have been better if Tommy had visited the hospital. And I understand that maybe in the current form of the film, it wouldn't have been able to work that way because you'd have to write Tommy's sort of journey a bit differently. But you know, for example, take the fact that maybe it would have been cool if he comes to the hospital, Laurie's still unconscious, and you just hear beep, beep, you know, and he walks into the hospital room and he sits down, right? And you just hear way off in the distance, you know, Dr. Sunsum, you know, line 1, please, Dr. line 1, you know, and he sits down and he's looking at her, you know. So there's that moment we as the audience like, wow, this is Tommy and fucking Laurie. This is like, oh, gee, shit, they're looking at each other. Holy fuck. And then maybe he holds her hand and she wakes up and she's like, Tommy. And he's like, hey, it's me. He's like, is it really you? Like, I haven't seen, And so we get an idea of how long it's been. There's breathing room there for us to sit with this moment, this moment, this reunion moment. There was none of that. None of that between any of the legacy characters. I didn't feel any of that. It just felt like they were just there. And like I said, part of the reason why could have been that maybe the writers just didn't think to write that, or maybe they just didn't have the time to do it because there was so much going on, which I'll get to in a second. So I really would have loved to have seen more of that breathing room with some of the characters. And here's a complete missed opportunity. Brackett and Laurie don't even have a scene together. We see him recognize the name when Karen says, it's Laurie Strode. We see him kind of go, Laurie, and he looks over and the camera kind of shows his little tag that says Brackett. I mean, that's cool, but we never see Laurie and Brackett have a scene together at all. Complete missed opportunity. Another moment that would have been nice. And listen, I understand the more legacy characters you have in a film, the more that, you can't just be having all these weepy, emotional, I get it takes up a lot of screen time. And maybe that's why you write a movie where you don't bring back so many characters, but like, again, it's a catch-22, right? Like, I understand all this. I'm just saying that as a fan and as a writer, I would have been conscious of that. Would have been like, hey, I think we need to let this moment breathe, because I didn't really feel attachment to any of them. I didn't feel any moment where I was like, wow, there they are again. Not at all. I didn't feel that at all. I thought the performances were fine. I thought Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy Doyle was fine. I thought he was fine. I actually would love to have seen more of him, more of an opportunity for him to grow as a character in that role. But the hospital stuff with the legacy characters and some of the dialogue and some of the lines, it just really wasn't working. I think it's serviceable. Like, for somebody like Bruce, he was like, it's a horror movie. When I said to him, some of the dialogue was campy and cheesy and all that, he recognized it too. I mean, he's not a stupid guy. He saw it, but he turned to me and he goes, it's a slasher, whatever, because he's that kind of fan, right? He's not looking at it through the same lens that we are, right? In terms of the genre, right? So, but on second watch, I was like, this doesn't feels a little strange. The pacing is a little weird. I think the pacing in Halloween 18 is far better. I do. I think it's better. I think the pacing in this movie seems a little strange, but that also could be because every time we go back to the hospital, I don't think these moments at the hospital are strong enough to make me glad we're at the hospital. I'm kind of like, can we go back to Myers killing? And I hate to say that. And again, it's only on second watch. Maybe this film will grow. And like I've said, making movies is fucking hard. It's very, very hard. Nobody goes out to make a bad movie or to make these things, by and large. Nobody goes out to make something that's not going to jive with people. And a lot of what I'm saying may be completely irrelevant to some of you. You might be like, that didn't bother me at all. But the pacing of the film, on second watch, I was looking at the movie through a bit of a different lens now, and I was like, this does feel a little kind of strange, a little disjointed, a little slow at certain moments. It doesn't quite feel right. Like, we should, maybe if we just kind of take this, move this over here and do this, that it'll pick up the pace a bit. It might feel a bit better, because how you edit something, I mean, for those of you that don't know, it's not just that maybe you don't have enough or that you need more. Sometimes it's just in the order for which you edit your story. Sometimes, you can have a sequence of events play out where you're like, it's fine, but there's something not, what if we put this here and that there? Does that, and all of a sudden it's like, that flows so much better. It could just be a matter of that. I know I'm not the only one that noticed that, This weird thing with this mentally ill patient that shows up at the hospital, and all of a sudden there's this moment where almost like there's this subplot with this mental patient that has escaped and that shows up at the hospital that looks nothing like Myers. I mean, with all due respect, he looks like Danny DeVito. And it's just kind of like, I had trouble believing that people would think this was Michael Myers. I don't believe that. I mean, that would be like somebody confusing me for James Jude Courtney. I mean, I'm 5'8", he's 6'3". I mean, it doesn't, I had trouble, like maybe if it was somebody that was just, was taller and just looked, I had trouble with that. And I know what that scene was all about. And at the end of the day, that scene was to communicate to the audience. It was an example of misinformation, right? And this is where I'm saying where they're bringing a lot of these themes into the movie that I don't necessarily believe was the intention from the beginning. And that doesn't mean it can't work, but this scene was all about misinformation, about what happens to people when they believe, when they hear something, and they just run with it without verifying it, right? Without actually doing the due diligence to verify it. And you see this mob mentality. You see respectable people, doctors, nurses, security guards, rising up and running through the hospital, and evil dies tonight, and here's this guy that looks like he's 5'3", and he's there and he's like, and they're running down the hall, and Karen recognizes that it's not Michael, obviously, because she went face to face with him, and is like, no, it's okay, come here, it's okay. And even on my first watch, even trying to watch it with my expectations tempered, I remember thinking to myself, yeah, this feels strange. It's not, it could be perceived as the Sartain moment in Halloween Kills, but I don't think it's as jarring as the Sartain moment in H18. Again, this is where the nuance comes in. Like if you had to point to something in Halloween Kills that maybe was like a Sartain moment, that might be it, but I don't think it's as jarring as what happened in 18. But it still felt like filler. It still felt like we need this in here because we want to show how mob and crowds react to misinformation. And it's kind of like, okay, but it felt it takes up a lot of screen time, and I get it. And the message was delivered and it works. I totally got it. Like I got what they were doing, because then he ends up killing himself, right? He jumps off through a window and he hits the pavement, and he ends up killing himself. And that's tragic. And they're responsible for that. Not obviously they didn't actually attack him, but they are, well, I guess they kind of were. They are directly responsible for that. So what are the ramifications of that? What does that mean? It just felt, I don't know. I just didn't, it just felt like filler and kind of like, why are we going here? Like, let's get back to, it felt a little off track for me. I didn't, and I noticed that the first time. Again, on my first watch, I did notice it, but I was putting it to the back of my mind, just taking it as is, because I wanted to kind of, but last night, it was very kind of weird. But again, maybe in subsequent viewings, it won't bother me as much. I don't know. But I do not understand how a town that has been tormented by Michael Myers for 40 years could mistaken Danny DeVito for Michael Myers. I have trouble believing that. I mean, at least make him look like it's plausible this could be him. But maybe that was the idea, that it's so clearly not him, the representation of it's so clearly not the proper evidence, you know what I mean? But it goes to show you that people will believe anything when there is when they don't do their due diligence or whatever. I mean, maybe that's the idea. If you were to speak to David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, maybe they would say, no, the idea was to have him look nothing like him because that's the point. And from a writing perspective, I get it. I understand that. But I can't say that I liked the scene or the moment really. Some good gore, though, when you see him on the pavement and his head's all smushed and that was good. That was fun. So yeah, and then of course Laurie rides, and I had trouble. This is where, I've talked about this before too, and I'm going to say it again. This is where I've said many times, and look, as you know, Halloween purist, I'm okay. Like I can watch the original Halloween on its own and leave it there. But you do know that Halloween 2, 81 is my favorite sequel. And, I can watch Halloween 1 on its own. It's a complete story. I can watch Halloween 2 with Halloween 1, and for me, that's a complete story. And I'm okay. Like, I'm not a huge proponent of the brother-sister arc. I don't think it's necessary. And of course, I was okay with them negating part 2. We know they negated part 2 because of the brother-sister arc. They didn't want to have that in there, and they know that how are we going to explain Michael surviving an inferno like that? They just didn't want to deal with that, so they left it out. But the more this story goes on, and the more that the writers ask us to believe that this town has been, not just Laurie now, the town has been like really tormented by this 40-year-old thing, the more I have trouble believing it. And listen, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. Who the fuck am I to say, who am I to question anybody's PTSD, right? Like, let me just first say that. Everybody is different. And who am I to say that something like that on a small town wouldn't affect a town like that for 40 years? But I'm a pretty smart guy, and I have trouble believing that it would. Not to say that it's not an eyesore or that it doesn't last, but the more the story asks us to believe that this town is just, where they are with Michael Myers, the more I have trouble believing that it would be there based on the 1978 film only. Now, I understand why they got rid of part 2. I get it. I would have made the same decision. But if hypothetically, if you included part 2, let's forget about the brother-sister thing and how we're going to explain that he survived a fire. Let's just forget about that for a minute. Think about all the carnage that happened in part 2 and happened at the hospital, right? So when you think of everything that Laurie went through in part 1, everything she went through in part 2, everything, that happened at the hospital and at the town and the media and all that kind of stuff, it makes it feel like, that the town would be more like, whoa, if all that was still canon, because it just adds to the mayhem. It adds to the legend, the lore, the reason why they would be like going crazy. And it makes sense then why the hospital, Haddonfield Memorial, it's still called the same. The logo is still the same. That's just fan service. But, it makes sense then why this hospital will be like, hang on. He fucking murdered nurses. He murdered fucking doctors. He fucking murdered, security guards. It makes sense then why doctors, nurses, and security guards are rising up going, evil dies tonight, going, even though it didn't happen to them, maybe it happened to one of their parents, or maybe it happened to their grandfather or something, right? And then it almost feels like why the hospital, why all these doctors and nurses have totally thrown ethics out the window, have totally thrown security out the window, and are just running with a bunch of civilians through this hospital with no disregard to security or safety. And listen, I get that's the idea. I get the subtext there. I totally get that. Totally get that. But I think it would be more believable that they would do that if all the shit that happened in part 2 was canon. Do you know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like the deeper we go into the psychosis of the town, the more that I feel you need more of what happened in the past. Now, that's me, but I do kind of feel that way a bit, even though I'm the first to say that you don't need it. So that was kind of strange. All the hospital stuff I'm not crazy on. I also find it strange, and listen, I mean, it's not like I visit a hospital every day. Maybe this is common in the States. Maybe it's common in some hospitals here in Canada. I don't know. But I did find it strange that you could just walk down a hall and look in through a window like you're looking at your newborn baby and see dead bodies lying on a gurney or lying on a table, and they're just there nude, and it's just kind of like, can you just, I mean, poor Oscar's mom had to find out her son died by looking through a window and seeing his naked body just lying there. I mean, are there no curtains? Is there no disregard, or no regard, I should say, for the general public walking? I mean, it seems kind of strange. Like, I'm like, really? Do we, and again, I understand that this could be perceived as nitpicks. Totally get that. But I'm looking at it now through that Halloween purist lens, right? And I'm thinking to myself, at least have a curtain or something. Like, maybe there's a curtain and Oscar's mom looks through the crack of the curtain. Like, she's walking down the hall and she looks and she's like, what's that? And she goes over and she kind of looks through the crack of the curtain. And then there's maybe like this 70s style Black Christmas / It's Me, Billy Zoom up on Oscar's body or something. That would be totally out of character for this kind of movie. But yeah, but that kind of thing, right? She kind of goes to the curtain and she's like, what's in there? And she looks through and then she kind of sees her son's body and she's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Because then at least there's like an attempt to conceal it. Like, it just kind of feels like, yeah, come walk down this way and come look at your dead body. It just feels strange to me, unless there's something I'm missing. But that felt a little strange and a little kind of weird. This would be perceived as a nitpick, but Tommy referring to himself as Tommy, I don't think I would have written that. I don't think, sometimes, listen, it's sometimes people who are called Billy, Tommy, Timmy as their kids, when they're kids, are still called that when they're adults. But usually it's a child thing. It's an endearing thing. It's kind of like it'd be like calling me Davy, right? I mean, I'm probably not going to be called Davy. Not that there aren't examples of adults still being called Davy, Tommy, Billy, Timmy. Absolutely, Billy Idol. You know what I mean? But I don't know if he would refer to himself as Billy. I think, when he says, and I'm Tommy Doyle, and I would have written it as, and I'm Tom Doyle, and I'm, you know what I mean? Like, because I think he would have referred to himself as Tom. I could see Lori saying Tommy. If the last time she saw him was 40 years ago, there's that natural connection. I'm going to call him Tommy. You know what I mean? But if they've been hanging out and going out to lunch and stuff, she probably calls him Tom now. Again, that's a nitpick. Doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. But just from a writing perspective, if I was writing the script, I probably would have written it. I probably would have written it that way, that he calls himself Tom, because it just shows a progression of the character. He's an adult now. He's not a little boy. So just that's kind of how I feel about some of the stuff at the hospital. And I know I will probably have some more things to say in the subsequent days and weeks and going on Hallowstream and all that kind of stuff. And but that stuff I can't. I have to admit, not that there aren't a few things at the hospital that I like, but by and large, most of the hospital stuff I'm like, it doesn't really. Yeah, it didn't do much for me, I'll say. And I think that's because there's just a lot going on, and the performances are, there's some performance issues maybe, or there's just lines that it's just kind of strange. I think maybe if they had dialed back how many people that were in this film, that maybe there would have been more time to have that breathing room and to have that moment. Like, for example, so the gay couple at the Myers house, Big John and Little John, that's cute. That's fun. You know what I mean? And I totally support showing representation. I really like that the hospital showed a lot of diversity. I do like that, seeing all different walks of life, because it's really important that, people see themselves on screen. I do mean that. I don't think that's a woke comment at all, but it's got to be done organically. It's got to feel genuine. I mean, if it feels preachy and condescending, then you're just going to turn people off, right? It's got to feel really natural and organic. And I really like the way they did that. It just is, you know what I mean? And that was really cool. I totally support that. And the gay couple, I think, was fun. I really enjoyed that. However, from a story perspective, maybe if they had removed them from the picture and moved all theirs and just had the Myers house abandoned, I'm wondering how much, having removed them, not, again, folks, nuance, not because they're gay, I couldn't care less. It could have been a straight couple. I'd be saying the same thing. But there's somebody out there going, oh, it's because they're gay. No, it has nothing to do with that. I'm just talking about what in the movie could we remove and sort of maybe kind of help the pace so we can concentrate more on the hospital, maybe concentrate more on some reunion activity, and allow maybe some certain things to breathe and bring up the pacing. Or I don't know, there's just something. I'm trying to figure out certain, like, where in the movie, or maybe the couple with the drone, right? Maybe we figure out something there, or just something, not sacrificing the kills and the blood and the guts, but after my second watch, I was trying to figure out how can we kind of, or how would I maybe make this feel a bit more kind of not so disjointed, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, there's many ways that you can do that. The moment with Lindsay and Marion and I love this couple. I really liked them. The I forget their names, but the black couple at the beginning of the movie in the bar. They were in the first film as well, but they had cameos where they're dressed as a doctor and a nurse and what. I really liked them. I thought they were really good. Strong performances and some nice humor, which I really liked. I again, humor that landed. It was the right moment. The timing is right. I like that. The humor landed well, which was cool. But the scene with them in the car with Lindsay and Marion and whatnot, I mean, it was okay. I did find it strange why the nurse, the one that was dressed as a nurse, I like that she's dressed as a nurse, but she's actually a doctor. And her husband is dressed as a doctor, but he's actually a nurse. I like that. That was fun. But I wonder why she ran off to come back. Like, she kind of fell out of the car and then she ran off, and Myers is killing Marion or her husband, and then she comes back to shoot him. I'm like, why wasn't she shooting him at the moment that her husband was in trouble? I don't understand that. I found that kind of weird. And again, I don't think this is nitpicking. This is just kind of like, I'm like, why would she, like, she fell out. I didn't get the impression she was unconscious and then came to. She just kind of fell out of the car and then was not there. And then all of a sudden she's running down the street back to the car, firing the gun. It's a cool shot. Like, it's a cool moment. She's like fucking going Sarah Connor shit. I like it. It's kind of fun. But where did she go for like 30 seconds? Did she have to use the washroom or something? Like, I don't know why it took her so long to shoot him. So that was kind of weird. But then of course that leads into the great moment with Lindsay, which I really like, and the hiding and the bit of the stalking there. I really, really like that. So, but yeah, I mean, and then, what else? Let's see here. Other dislikes. I didn't mind the symbolism of, this is a like, but it's kind of a, yeah. Okay. So let's go to the, so those are some of my dislikes. I mean, most of my dislikes revolve around the hospital and the execution, the pacing, all that kind of stuff. The mixed feelings. Okay. So let's go to my notes here. Let's go to my mixed. The mob mentality, I'm a bit mixed on. Again, and I think it comes back to believing that the town would be this crazy, but not to say that they wouldn't be, right? So I'm mixed on that. I have mixed feelings on the beatdown of Michael. Just mixed on it. I just don't know how to feel about it yet. I'm not crazy. Obviously I'm not crazy on it, or I would be like, woo. So I feel sort of mixed on that. I feel mixed on the ending of the film and the way that it ended. Listen, I knew it was going to end abruptly. I knew it was going to end on a cliffhanger. I think most of us did, because we have another movie to go. So it does feel unfinished in that regard. But I felt very mixed with Karen's quote unquote death. And let's be honest here. Although we saw Brackett die, although we saw Tommy die, although we saw Karen die, and I do believe that they are going to carry that through, because you have to have that happen to give bottom to your story. Now the stakes are higher. Now there's more emotional weight and bottom for Laurie. You know what I mean? It just makes it much more interesting from a writing and storytelling perspective. Like, you can't Marvel this shit and have them all come back. However, having said that, we thought Hawkins was pretty dead and buried in 6 feet under at the end of H-18, and he came back. So could you bring Karen back? Yes. I think you could figure out a way to do that. She was stabbed and she's bleeding, and she's unconscious, but she survives, and could you do it with Brackett? Sure. Maybe Brackett got his throat slashed, but he's lying there, but he's barely alive. There's just a pulse. He's alive. Get him to the hospital, and same with Tommy, right? I mean, you could do that, but I don't think they're going to. But again, here's a moment. Okay. So that moment when Michael regains consciousness after his epic beatdown from this mob, and he starts killing everybody, and he kills Tommy. Follow me here. That moment where the sound falls away and he's got the knife in Tommy and they're looking each other eye to eye, right? Eyes to eyes. And they're looking each other, and the film is breathing. It's taking a few breaths and a moment because it recognizes this is Tommy Doyle looking at Michael Myers for the first time in 40 years. Since you can't kill the boogeyman, this is the moment. And the film does a good job, despite the fact that I have mixed feelings on everything around it. The film at that moment does a good job of seeing Tommy Doyle looking at Michael, and the camera's kind of spinning around a bit, right? It's taking a moment. it didn't take that moment with Brackett. Brackett was just, and it's done. It's like, well, there goes Brackett. You know what I mean? With Tommy, it took a moment. And that's the kind of breathing room this film needed with legacy characters reunion. You know what I mean? Like they just kind of, and again, maybe there's just too many that you have to do and it would slow the film down if, everybody is being all melancholy and emotional every 5 seconds. Like I get that, but that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about you need that. Because, it really affects Halloween fans. It really affects Halloween fans emotionally to bring that into it and to allow that moment to breathe. And that was a moment. It's like, oh my God, this is it. And he's looking and Michael's tilting his head and Tommy's looking up like this, and it's just, and he's like, it was a good moment. It was a good moment. I liked that. How Michael got back to the Myers house and got into the Myers house, I don't know. Is it necessary to know? No. I mean, he is the Shape after all. And maybe he got in through the back door. I mean, we know the front door of the Myers house was, crawling with paramedics and police officers and Karen and, all that. So he likely would not have made it through the front door. Maybe he went around, but he did get there pretty quickly. But that's part of Michael's MO. I mean, so him suddenly being in Judith's bedroom with Karen didn't, I have mixed feelings on it. I have mixed feelings on it. It didn't bother me, but I didn't love it either. I'm just kind of like, I kind of feel mixed about that. So I feel mixed about the mob mentality. I feel mixed about the beatdown of Myers. I feel mixed about sort of the way it ended a bit. But I didn't hate, it didn't bother me. I just mean in terms of the moment and the way it was executed, the way it was shot, the way it was presented to us. I feel kind of mixed on it. So those are some of my likes. Those are some of my dislikes and some of the things I feel mixed on. Let me also say too, another thing that I liked was, I liked Cameron's death. I thought that was good. And how, the whole confrontation between Cameron and Michael and Allison and Michael at the top of the stairs, the Myers house, Allison falling down the stairs, hurting her leg or her knee or whatever. And that whole thing, like I like that scene. I like that, Cameron discovers his dad, dead above him and Michael suddenly, there was some nice suspense there. Again, suspense is a spectrum, right? But in that moment, for a few moments, there was some nice tension. It was like, there's some tension here. I kind of feel it. It's not overwhelming. It's not like, palpable and the tension's so thick you can cut it with a knife. It's not that level of tension, but there's a little bit of tension here, right? And I'm like, this is kind of cool. And you mix that with a bit of that lighting and it's like, this is, and you're in the Myers house and the Myers house looks like the Myers house. And you're kind of like, this is kind of cool, and then all of a sudden he bursts out of the closet and that's interesting. I like that whole confrontation there. I thought that was kind of cool. So, that's another thing that I liked, So, what else do I have here? Right. I think I've talked all about that. So, yeah. So, okay. So this is, and again, we know that Halloween Ends takes place 4 years later. I think they want it to take place in present day because I think David Gordon Green has said something recently about having the pandemic and, politics and things like that be a huge thing in Halloween Ends. That's not me. Don't shoot the messenger. Now, again, I haven't read the article. I haven't read his quote. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. There might be nuance that is in what he's saying that, is very important information. But I did hear that he had talked a bit about that. So, I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I'm not looking forward to Halloween Ends, but I'm not overly excited for Halloween Ends. I kind of feel the same way I felt after Halloween 18. Where it's kind of like, I could take it or leave it. I mean, it doesn't really bother me. Certainly, you've come this far and you have to complete the story now. And I will say that I still enjoyed my experience of watching Kills more than I enjoyed my experience of watching 18. And this could change, but at present day, as of right now, I think Halloween 18 is a better made movie overall. When we're looking at structure and pacing, and lines, performances, I just think it's a better movie in that regard. But when it comes to a lot of the Halloween shit, like the aesthetic and the look and the Myers house and all that, well then, I mean, there's no comparison. I mean, Halloween Kills delivers on that nostalgia. There's more fan service, more nostalgia, especially with that flashback, right? I mean, there's a lot of that there. So it delivers on that front, which was exciting for us hardcore Halloween fans. And it delivers on the kills. I mean, if you're looking for gory kills, it delivers on that, so it definitely has that over 18 as well. I would have loved to have seen a movie. And maybe Halloween Ends will be the best of both worlds. I mean, maybe Halloween Ends will be that balance. Like maybe Halloween 18 was a little too much of this. Halloween Kills was maybe a little too much of this. Maybe if we kind of meet in the middle, maybe Halloween, who knows, guys? Maybe, just maybe, Halloween Ends will be the movie we walk out of the theater going, holy fuck, they nailed it like across the board. You know what I mean? Like the pacing was on point. The performances were on point. The Halloween-y shit we purists love, was on point. There was some nice kills, like the music is, I mean, there's more suspense. Like there's genuine, like real tension they've drawn out. I mean, who knows? Maybe it will be. Halloween Kills, I don't believe it's a bad movie. There's some people out there saying, oh, this is dreadful. This is a awful movie. It's a train wreck from start to finish. Maybe I don't feel that way because of the experience I had the first time watching it. You know what I mean? I did what a lot of people say they're going to do, but can't quite do. And I'm not saying I'm any different than you. I'm just saying that we always hear people say, oh, I'm going in with no expectations. Listen, it's hard to go in with no expectations. I mean, even I had some expectations, right? But I think some people have I think their intentions are right. And I do believe when people say, I'm not going to watch the trailers, and some people don't. I'm going to go in with no expectations. And I believe that some of them do. But I think it's hard as the movie goes on to not, kind of get there. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it again, but for whatever reason, I did truly through that whole movie, just watch it like Bruce, a casual fan, and just kind of take it in like I'm at a ride at Universal Studios. And that's how I was able to enjoy it. And like, it's a fun ride. Like this is, oh my God, it's so well. And I can imagine if I went on a ride at Universal and this actually was a ride and they were throwing shit at me like they threw at me in this movie, oh my God, we'd all be going, you guys got to go on the Halloween ride at Universal, because our expectations are not the same as they are when they're delivering a canon film, right? It's a ride. And if it was lit the same and it showed Michael just as much, we'd be like, holy fuck, you gotta see this, oh my God, and fucking comes out, there's the Myers house and Dr. Loomis and shit, and he's like, did he die? And there's this fucking thing and blood and this drone shot and the fucking stuff, and then, yeah, I mean, we'd be fucking, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again, but I think that's how I was able to enjoy it the way that I did. But yeah, the film has the issues that people are saying. I do see those things too. I do. And it can be very person specific. Obviously, this is subjective. You may watch it 10 times and go, dude, I feel the same way now as I did the first time I watched it. These things do not bother me. What do you want? What do you expect? It's a slasher. It's this, that, and the other, right? So, that's how I feel. I mean, if I don't rate things, I mean, I gave, but if I had to rate it, I mean, I probably would rate it in a similar way that I rated Halloween 18. I mean, maybe I'd give it a bump up. I think I rated Halloween 18 a C+. Maybe I'd give this a B, maybe a B-. I don't know. I mean, I might rate it somewhere in there. I don't know. It's still too early, guys. It's opening weekend, right? So I don't know. But I do know that I rated, because keep in mind, I saw 18 at the world premiere in Toronto. I had 6 weeks before the film was released to the public. So my rating in my review of the 18 film is like 6 weeks worth of like, having it marinate. So maybe we ask me again in, another 6 weeks or so, maybe around Christmas time or something, or the end of November. Maybe then I'll have watched it a couple more times and kind of get a sense of it, sense of how I feel. But I think right now, I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't at all. Is it everything I wanted? No. Did I enjoy myself more than I watched 18? Yep. But yeah, there's things that I think they missed the mark on, and it is what it is. I mean, it's, maybe I'm just in my, older age. I'm not that old. I'm 42, but I've really learned from doing this YouTube channel and talking to you guys and talking Halloween all the time. I've really been able to learn how to, what my fandom is, what your fandom is, and how to approach certain things and how to just be realistic about everything. And, I think maybe that's why I'm just kind of like, I'm realistic about it. And maybe that's why I feel about it the ways that I do. But there are definitely issues, and I went over them here on this review today. So I definitely, yeah, there's some things where I'm like, I'm not quite feeling that. That's a little strange. But as of right now, like I said, maybe a B-, maybe something in there. Maybe. I don't know. What is that? A 7 out of 10 or something? Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, I hate rating stuff, right? Because I'm a filmmaker too, and I don't. It's like, not that I think that filmmakers can't critique other filmmakers' work. Of course you can, but I don't want to be. I understand that making movies is tough. It is. And these guys, they did the best that they possibly could do with what they had. And I do think there's a lot of stuff in this movie that is brilliant. Absolutely. But there's a lot of stuff that's kind of, and yeah, I think 18 overall, I think 18's a better movie all around. Even though I still don't feel it's a very good Halloween movie because of what's missing, I think it's a better movie structurally. I think, but ask me again in a few weeks. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Those are some of my thoughts, man. Those are some of my thoughts. Let's go over to the chat room now, because I know some super chats did come in. So I want to get those. So let's go over to the super chats here. And because a bunch did come in, quite a bit came in. So we have Alexander Polito, am I saying that right? Sends in a very generous super chat of $20. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Says, good afternoon, Dame McRae. Good afternoon, Dave. I'm a longtime fan watcher, but first time super chatting. Well, welcome, my man. Really appreciate it. Thoughts on the hospital scene with the officer, with the other escaped Smiths Grove patient. Also thoughts on Tommy Doyle being used so much in this movie. Well, I did already talk about that, right? Because this was a review. So you can go back and watch my thoughts on that. But Tommy Doyle being used, I actually liked him. I actually think Anthony Michael Hall is a terrific character actor. And I liked him in this movie. I actually wish somehow maybe we would have gotten rid of more of the hospital stuff being less convoluted and less ensemble piece with all these people, and maybe focused more on him and Laurie. I think might have elevated the film a bit in that regard. So I actually liked him. Showtime sends in $2 and says, how did he kill Karen? Supernatural element? I'm not quite sure what you mean. How did he kill Karen? Supernatural element? Well, no. I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean. Well, he just showed up and he stabbed her. I mean, that's essentially what happened. And if you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie yet, well, that's your problem, not mine. It does say spoiler review. Chris Parrish sends in $4.99, says script ending was so much better than the theatrical. Can't wait for the director's cut. I don't know. And as David Gordon Green has said, this movie you're watching pretty much is the director's cut. So don't think that you're going to get a shitload of stuff and somehow it's going to be a completely different movie when you watch it on Blu-ray. You will see the original ending, but the original ending, I don't know. Because reading a script, reading it on paper and having it translate to screen are two completely different experiences. So I don't know if maybe we'll watch and be like, actually, this is better. Who knows, right? We'll see. Universe 7 Gaming sends in $10. Thank you, buddy. Says, Tommy's death hit me the wrong way. His head being caved in was overkill. Not saying I didn't like it. I just weird seeing him die that way. Tommy Loomis Tommy's, I don't remember his head being caved in unless I missed that. I know that Michael hits him with a baseball bat, and I guess it's assumed that that's probably what happened. I don't recall seeing his head smashed. Maybe it is there, though. Maybe it is there. But again, yeah, I mean, just that breathing room, seeing that breathing room with the characters, it just felt like there was just too much. There was just too much going on. It was maybe a little too ambitious. And maybe if they had just dialed it back a bit, they would have allowed themselves the breathing room they needed, the nuance they needed, to really hone in on things and make things strong all the way through. It's strong all the way through. But, it is what it is. Jesus Freak Body Reeve sends in $9.99 and says, Dave, you have done a top 20 cringeworthy moments in the Halloween series. How about a top 20 cringeworthy lines in this series? Number 1, looking like a crispy there, Mike. Looking a little crispy there, Mikey. A little chicken fried motherfucker. Yeah, well, I could do that. We'll see. That is a cringy line. There's a lot of them in Halloween Resurrections. JT, the movie maker, sends in, 1 second here. Can I go back and get that one? Let me see here. No, so I'm going to keep going here for now. Just want to make sure. Jay, the movie maker, sends in $4.99, says, Hey Dave, love the stream. I am begging you to maybe make a Halloween Kills sequel pitch. Your 2018 sequel pitch is too good. Well, I mean, in some ways, guys, my Halloween sequel pitch is my Halloween Kills pitch, right? I mean, I made that before they even announced there was going to be a Halloween Kills. My sequel to the 2018 film was called The Shape. And if you want to listen to what I would have done in a follow-up to the Halloween 18 film, just YouTube Dave McRae, Halloween sequel concept or something like that, and it will come up. And I did that before they announced Halloween Kills. So listen to it. Tell me what you think, because that's kind of the direction I would have gone. Simandi Hayes, am I saying that right? I don't think I'm saying that right. Anyways, $5. I appreciate it. Dave, they messed up with the flashback. Michael was shot, but didn't show any visible damage on his suit. Yeah, I mean, again, that's nerdy stuff, right? That's like, but it didn't show. But to your point, maybe they should have showed that. Maybe they should have showed it. Maybe. I didn't see it, but to be fair, I wasn't even looking for it. But it didn't bother me. I mean, that to me is kind of like, the tree outside where there wasn't a tree out there. But I mean, to your point, I mean, it is a good point. It's a good point. Kevin Fishgall sends in $5, says, with what happened, I believe, sorry guys, I'm just getting messages from my agent. Sorry, threw me off there. It's fine. It just was a booking. Where am I? Am I on Kevin Fishgall? With what happened, I believe that's why Hawkins was never able to become sheriff. He probably isn't able to retire either. No pension. That's not a bad choice. There's a cover up. Yeah, that's not bad. Barker's useless in this movie. Barker is absolutely useless in this movie. I love Omar Dorsey. I think I don't want to say I love him. I mean, I've seen him in other things. I like him. He's fine. But he was a useless stooge. His character, Barker, was a useless stooge in 18. I had trouble believing that he would be so dismissive. You're the sheriff of Haddonfield. And if it really is like, this is like, shh, don't talk about Michael Myers. You know what I mean? I don't think he would have taken Hawkins. I don't believe he would have dismissed Hawkins. Hawkins was there that night. He would have known that. I just don't believe he would have been so dismissive. And he was a useless stooge in 18. He's a useless stooge in this movie. He has no control over anything. And again, maybe that's the point, right? Maybe that's the point. But I just think you should have made Hawkins the sheriff. But to your point, maybe that's why they didn't. Maybe. We'll see. John Cresap. Am I saying that right? $4.99. Thank you, buddy. Says, do you think the house and Judith play a part in his power? It feels like he resets and is bound to it like Camp Crystal Lake. I don't think so. I mean, I think that, look, I mean, maybe. I think it's just important to him psychologically. I don't think there is any literal power coming from the house. Michael is alive. No, I don't think it's... like a literal interpretation of like something like a supernatural power. No. I think it is just, it's important to him because if you want to look at it from a science perspective, and we talk about regression, right? And I think he goes back there because, there's an argument to be made that maybe in his own mind, he's still that 6-year-old child. And that he goes back there, like Hawkins said, right? He goes back there because it's familiar to him. It's where he last lived. It's his memories. He's regressing. And therefore, I think that's, and that's the symbol of him looking out the window, seeing the clown and all that kind of shit. It's a regression, and so that's what I think it is at the end of it. I don't think there's a literal supernatural power and interpretation of that, but I do see you put power in brackets as well. So, I know you understand that. Aunt Donna sends in $5, says, Dave, I popped when I saw Loomis come into the scene. I do wish, however, they didn't show his face as close as they did still. Very well done. Yeah, I agree. It's sort of like a Tarkin thing, or a Princess Leia thing in Rogue One. But it didn't bother me. I mean, I think they did for the purpose of what they were doing. I think it was great. Like, I totally believed it. It's fine. It was good enough for me to believe. It was good enough for me to believe. For sure. For sure it was. Yeah, absolutely. Rad77 sends in $9.99, says, one thing we learned between 18 and Kills, Hawkins can't shoot a gun. He missed in the alley flashback scene, and he missed in the house 3 times. One hit his partner. He missed in 2018 after Vicky's death scene. That's true. Yeah, that's true. His shot isn't exactly on point. That's a good detail that I didn't think of. Very good point. Very good point. He needs to brush up on his target skills, I think. Lunar Lad sends in $5, says, do you think in Halloween Kills we will see a full-on supernatural Myers? In Halloween Kills? Have you yet to see the movie? Or are you talking about Ends? Like in Halloween 4 script? Okay, well, if you're talking about Kills, the answer is no. If you're talking about Ends, I'm going to say that the answer will be no. Especially from what David Gordon Green is suggesting. Where Nomad has gone before sends in $5, says, maybe Brackett was wondering how old Laurie is now, Dave. Maybe Brackett was wondering how old Laurie is now. Yeah, maybe he was. So why didn't he go see her? I think that's a missed opportunity. I think to not have Brackett and Laurie in the same room together and have a moment between them, knowing you're going to kill him, I think is a missed opportunity. And again, I mean, that's part of my dislikes, is that I don't think there was enough breathing room with these legacy characters. And another thing I didn't like either was, why are they all hanging out? Like, I mean, am I really to believe that Marion I guess they all get together on Halloween every year and cheers a toast, or are they together on this Halloween because it's specifically 40 years? I'm a little hazy on that. Like, are these, Lindsay, Marion, Tommy, and Lonnie, do they all get together every Halloween for a toast? Or are they just together this Halloween because it's the 40th? I wasn't quite sure whether that was said. But that's, again, that's kind of like, okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, it was fun to see them. For sure. It's fun to see them reprise their roles. Obviously not Tommy and Lonnie, because they're played by 2 different people, but certainly it was fun to see Kyle Richards reprise Lindsay and what's her face there? Nancy Stevens, I believe it is, reprise Marion Chambers. Yeah, it's fun. But, I didn't feel anything when they died. Oh, and Charles Cyphers, of course. I didn't feel it. I needed to I wanted to feel it, and I didn't feel it. But again, that's just a difference in, that's all. It's just a difference. It's not bad. I mean, how it happened, it's not like Bruce, those things aren't affecting Bruce. The casual movie fan, the casual horror fan will not even be fazed by any of the fucking things we're talking about here. That's what we have to remember. I mean, Bruce doesn't have the same emotional attachment to Brackett, to Lindsay, to Tommy, to Lonnie that we do. Which is why he was able to say some of the things he said. And he's a smart dude. He knows campy dialogue when he sees it. He knows structure and writing that doesn't make sense when he sees it. But he's not looking at it through the same lens. And that's why, he didn't say to me, I wish we had more breathing room with Tommy and Lori. No! Well, I didn't know, right? It all depends, you heard me say it before, what kind of a Halloween fan you are and what you want from this movie. You guys remember me saying that, right? So, it is what it is. But yes, as a Halloween purist, I would have loved to have seen more breathing room with those characters, man. It felt very rushed. But that's the fan, right? That's the fan. Matthew Foresi sends in $4.99, says the ending worked better in the script. I actually like the idea of her hearing him breathing on the phone. It ended too quickly. I like that too. Yes, if that is what we're going to get on the Blu-ray, I'm going to be very curious to see if this ending, although I guess we won't know until we see ends, whether or not they could have left, if the original ending is better, let's hypothetically say it's better, right? And it's generally thought of as better. Let's just say that. We don't know. Maybe it won't be, but let's just say it is, right? I'll be curious to know whether or not how I feel, whether they could have kept it and still done Halloween Ends the same way. Do you know what I mean? And we're like, oh, they should have just kept it because you still could have jumped 4 years. I'll be very curious. Now, they changed it because they don't believe they can. They changed it because, no, we need to end it here because of what we're doing over here. Okay, and fair enough. They may be right. I mean, they would know better than me at this point. But I'll be curious to see if I agree with them at the end of the day when everything is all brought together. Chris Baber sends in $1.99. Thank you, Chris. Says Michael is gonna have some bad John Wick bruises. Yes. Oh my God. And he was shot point blank too, which is interesting. I don't know if I would have shot him. But maybe he collapses again and is brought to a hospital. Ooh, maybe that's what they do. Maybe, yes, he was shot point blank to the point but maybe he's going on adrenaline. There's that supernatural element. He kills everybody there. He goes to the Myers house. He kills Karen. But then maybe he collapses in Judith's bedroom maybe or something because he was shot point blank. Like, I don't know how many fucking times, right? Maybe he does. And maybe he's transported to a hospital. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Or maybe he walks off into the ether and he's not seen for 4 years. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm very curious. Brian Sevilla sends in $10. Thank you, Brian. Says with Karen putting it in Michael's head to go after her instead of her daughter, is Michael able to be manipulated? Does this ruin some of Michael's mystique? And will this be exploited later? I don't know. Listen, anytime you make a movie after the original Halloween, Michael's mystique will go further, Michael's mystique, it's hard to make a sequel, let alone multiple, and keep the same mystique there. Right? So for example, take, It's Me, Billy. One of the complaints from people was, I thought we saw him too much, right? That's fair. But there was a reason why we showed him in the ways that we did. And you never saw his face. You saw him more. You saw his body more. But that's because we needed to progress his character more. And we didn't want to show you too much. We didn't want to dive into his backstory and all that kind of stuff. So how do you develop a character like Billy without doing that? Well, you do it through the lens, right? And you make it, you show the parallels and you show him from a different perspective than you haven't seen before because it is nearly 50 years later. And I feel, then again, I'm a bit biased because I'm one of the co-writers and directors in the movie, but I think we did a good job of that. I still think the mystique is there. It's not the same mystique because you can't do the same thing over again or you're just doing the same movie over again. This is a sequel, so you got to progress the narrative. It's all in how you shape it, no pun intended, right? So I think they've done a good job, even in 18 and in Kills, at keeping the mystery there, keeping the audience guessing, in my opinion. Again, I got to watch these movies again. But do they show more of him? Do they allude to more things? Sure, yeah. Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, He was unmasked. He was walking around unmasked. But, you know, kudos, man. I mean, they're making bold decisions. They're getting the audience, hardcore fans. Remember, the casual viewer is not going to be thinking like this. They don't care. But the hardcore fan is going to look at this and you know, do I like it? Do I not like it? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. But they made some bold decisions. And I had no issues really with how, I mean, James Jude Courtney, I forgot to say this in my likes. James Jude Courtney's performance was fantastic. I mean, he is tremendous in this movie. He's great. I loved him in 18. I loved him in this movie. I think his portrayal of Michael Myers is spot on. And I think he's great. So shout out to James Jude Courtney, because I think he's fantastic. And the way the mask looks and everything, I think it was great. I mean, yeah, there were certain moments where we saw maybe too much of him. But overall, I liked the way he looked and the way he moved and things like that. I thought was great, was fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, to your point though, I mean, I don't know. I think it's I don't think he's able to, I don't think he's able to be manipulated. He's just following her because she's got his mask, you know, so he wants the mask, you know. At least that's how I feel about it now. Like, again, that could change. Let me go back here. Some more came in. Ooh. Right. Okay. And let me get the other one. Here we are. I can see you guys now. Daniel Palma sends in $4.99 and says, wouldn't everyone know what Michael Myers looks like? Well, I agree. Small town, triple murder, definitely has a mugshot and face all over the news over years. Why chase a mental patient? Well, not just why chase a mental patient. Why chase a mental patient that looks like Danny DeVito? Now, if we want the real reason as to why, the real reason why, well, it's the social commentary that they are delivering with what they're doing, right? It's all about misinformation and how easy it is to believe something that isn't true without, you know, doing your due diligence and listening to the facts and all that. That's what it is. And the ramifications and repercussions of that. That's what that is. That is social commentary. Okay. That's 100%. That's what that is. That is, you know, you see people, good people, you know, ordinarily doctors, nurses, security, good, well-educated people rising up, not acting like themselves, believing something that wasn't verified because somebody just said, there he is. Is it Michael? I think it's Michael. Yeah, I think it's Michael. That's Michael. There he is. Is it Michael? And then Lori goes, Michael, you know, and then it's just boom, there it goes, right? It catches like wildfire and boom. And it isn't, and we know it isn't. And like I said, if I had a chance to talk to them, maybe they'd say, no, the fact that it looks like Danny DeVito, you know, so not like Michael is the point. Maybe it is. But that was the intention behind it. But I agree with you though. I think it's sort of, do we believe that people would make that mistake? Do we believe that many people would make that mistake? Do we believe that people would lose all sense of rationale and control, that in a hospital setting, they would jeopardize security and doctors and nurses and security guards would get in on the mob mentality in the hospital when you have patients around? And, you know, I don't know, you know what I mean? So but the reason is that it's social commentary. Real Reveal sends in $10 and says, I wish we saw Karen's death differently, except of behind her. And why would she go to Judith's room? Also, wasn't a fan of the ending. Wish it ended where they had Michael in a circle. Yeah, that might have been interesting, Real. That's not a bad idea. Well, she went to Judith's room because she saw the image of Michael as the 6-year-old boy. Now, again, it's a metaphor. Did she really see him? You know what I mean? Like, let's not, like, again, this is where I want fans to instill some nuance. Did she really see him? Not necessarily, right? It could have just been a feeling. Do you know what I mean? But to communicate that to the audience through cinematic language, what they do is they show you 6-year-old Michael standing at the window. But through the eyes of Karen, is she really seeing him there? Not necessarily. right? Now, we won't know that, and maybe we'll never know that, but you can definitely interpret it that way, right? And this is where you got to kind of have to be a little more intelligent about it, and how they're telling the story, what sort of cinematic language that they're using. So I don't necessarily believe that she saw, him, because why would, he's not dead. So why would she see his 6-year-old ghost? So that doesn't make any sense, right? So it's more of a philosophical approach to the situation and a symbolic one. So maybe she just had a feeling, or maybe in reality, she thought she saw a shadow or something, or I don't know. There's just something told her to go up there. And she did, and she was killed. Was she killed? I don't know. Listen, like I said, if Hawkins can come back, certainly, Karen can come back. I don't think she will, though. I think Karen, Tommy, and Brackett are definitely, well, we know Marion and Lonnie are dead for sure. Brackett and Tommy, I don't know. Did we see Tommy's face all beaten? We know we saw the bat go up and come down and blood splat. So yeah, I think he's probably hard to bring back. But I think they're dead because it raises the stakes, right? It raises the stakes. And you got to do that. It brings bottom and weight to the story. Tyler Davis sends in $5, says, how cool was it to hear the Myers house theme in this movie? Oh, fucking cool. Very, very cool. And it wasn't the old school version. It was a new iteration, but it sounded old school. I like that. When they found the bodies in the park and the original music was playing, I got chills. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. It's really cool. Yep, for sure. Definitely cool, man. Eddie sends in $5 and says, hey, Dave, do you think if the doctor and nurse, oh, there goes my notes. If you think the doctor and nurse were do you think if the doctor and nurse were Julian's parents, there would be more emotion to their deaths rather than a throwaway kill? No, not for me, because we weren't introduced to them as Julian's parents in the first movie. So just knowing they were Julian's parents doesn't really, no, I don't think so. Not for me anyway. Not for me. Maybe for you, but not for me. Good question, though. Good question. Calvonics Music. Hey, man, what's going on? Sends in $10. Says, hi, Dave. I'm currently in the process of moving. Is there a way to change my address for shipment of the It's Me, Billy Blu-ray? Already tried to on Indiegogo. Oh, there should be a spot on Indiegogo. There should be. You should be able to change your address. I don't see why you wouldn't. But I'll tell you what, send me, if you follow me on social, like if you follow me on Twitter or Many Things Dave McRae, that's a good spot to do it. Go to my Many Things Dave McRae Facebook page and just send me a DM there. But keep trying to, but it would be better. Ideally, it would be better on Indiegogo because then it's already taken care of and I'm not going to miss it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's already there when I go to access the information. You should be able to. Maybe reach out to Indiegogo and just ask and just say, hey, I want to change my, I want to update my address for this reason and it's not allowing me to or whatever. Reach out to them first and ask. And if not, then Many Things Dave McRae. Definitely do that. And thank you for the super chat, man. Really, really appreciate that. And yes, I do have the Billy Blu-rays. They're here. We're just going through them. We're going through them. We still have to go through them and organize them all, but there it is. It's Me, Billy on Blu-ray, folks. Pretty darn cool to say the least. Pretty darn cool. There's an hour-long BTS there too that you guys will enjoy. All right. Michael Strong sends in 5. I think that's euros. Maybe it's pounds. They kind of look similar to me when I'm not paying attention. Just tuned in. So apologies if you already touched on it. Was it just me or was Laurie having an Obi-Wan moment when Karen got killed? Yeah, I think so. I think, but again, that is, I don't think we should take it literally. That's cinematic language. So what the filmmakers are doing are communicating to you, the emotional connection that these people have. Now, it wouldn't surprise me. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if when we get to Halloween Ends, there's they don't even revisit that. They don't even revisit Laurie, having that kind of thing. Or it's cinematic language in the moment that tells you that Laurie, she's just getting a bad feeling. Maybe mother's intuition, right? Maybe it's just as simple as mother's intuition, right? And she's just got a bad feeling. That's all. Because she sees the chaos around her and she's just like, she's getting a bad feeling. But through the vehicle to tell the story, that's how they communicate that to you. Do you know what I mean? So, we got to take these things with a grain of salt, right? That's why I employ my viewers, and I have a McRae Live on my channel where I talk about what cinematic language is and how it's used and how it's not used and all that, or how it's used and how it's used and how it's utilized. I guess I should say. And when you understand what it is, you understand that filmmakers, through symbolism and through metaphors and cinematic language, will use those types of things to help tell their story and communicate a feeling or an emotion or a mood to their audience. You know what I mean? So I don't think she's going full on Jedi. Although you never know. Who the fuck knows? Let's see here. Must be Matt sends in $4.99. Thank you, buddy. Says, do you agree with some of the critics saying it's not a good Halloween film? I enjoyed the movie a lot, but I see the critics tearing it apart. It's not a good Halloween film. Well, again, I mean, it depends on what you want from a Halloween film. I mean, if you really love the 2018 film, then yeah, I guess for you, this wouldn't be a very good Halloween film. For me, I think it's a better Halloween film than 18, but in the sense of that it has this, and this, right? See, this is where the nuance comes in. You can't just say, for me, I can't just say it's a better Halloween film, because then people are likely to take that to mean that Dave thinks it's a better movie. Everything's better. Like, there's no nuance in fandom today. Very rarely are people able to read between the lines, especially when it's just text or, whatever. That's why you hear me prefacing so much on this channel, and I say things like, generally speaking, by and large, at the end of the day, for all intents and purposes. And the reason I do that is because if I don't, there are so many people that take things at face value so literally, because there's very little nuance today. And it's not just in fandom, it's in politics, it's in sports, it's in friendships, it's in relationships, it's how we communicate. And there's a war right now in society, not an official war, but in my estimation, there's a war right now on nuance, context, and intent to get rid of that stuff. They want to black and white everything. And it's just that's not how we are. That's not how we communicate. So, again, do I agree with them from a certain point of view? Maybe. Yeah, but I do think there are, for me as the Halloween purist, there was more to enjoy that felt Halloween to me than there was in Halloween 18. But I do think structurally 18 might be a better movie. Again, I've only seen it twice, but I think it is. I think it's a better movie overall, in that regard. But again, it depends, right? I'd have to read the reviews and get the context of what they're talking about. But that doesn't surprise me that I'm hearing that. Scott, I don't have my glasses on. Scott Maturano? Is that an I or an L? I'm not sure. No, it's an I? Mariano, I think is what it is. Sorry, it's an I, not a T. My apologies. $4.99. Despite H281 not being canon, I was surprised they showed the Annie flashback information. Yes, oh my God, thank you for saying that. When Brackett saw the dead body, yes, I noticed that. Yeah, they popped in an H2 flashback there. Clearly, fan service, right? Because we can imagine, even though Halloween 2 is not canon, we can imagine that Brackett discovering Annie's body would have happened very similar to that, right? And we're not seeing Loomis, we're not seeing the house, we're not, so, we can imagine, well, it probably would have went down this way anyway. So let's throw that in there. And, but I forgot about that. That's right. I forgot about that. Yep. Let me see here. Okay. Brandon Collins sends in $2, says Karen might be alive like Hawkins. It's ambiguous. That is true. But I think to bring emotional bottom to the story, like for Karen, because we've watched her arc and how she's defended her family a couple of times now, to have her die brings so much more weight and bottom to the film. And I actually didn't want her to die. I actually liked Karen. Again, there were a few Karenisms and some dialogue where I'm like, well, I'm not feeling that. But in terms of Karen's arc and her character, I'm actually kind of liking Karen a little bit. So when she died, I was like, ooh, oh, that's kind of sucky, you know, but that's good. That's good. You want that, you know, and if she is actually dead, then that gives more bottom and more emotional weight to the next story, you know, and more anger and vitriol and like, fucking God, she killed her daughter. Or they might do it where she's in a coma and she comes out of the coma at the end of the movie. Who knows? Okay, another super chat from Cody Buchanan, sends in $5, says, I took my 15-year-old son to see it, and he yelled out, why don't you just die, after Michael got shot, beat up, and stabbed. I think he was more into it than I was. Oh, that's so cute. That's amazing. That's awesome, man. That's so cool that you're able to have that experience with your son. Do you know what I mean? I think that's so cool. That's really awesome, man. That's really awesome. That's so cool. I think I got all the super chats. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I did. I think I've got them all. All right. What are we at here? I think we're almost at 2 hours here. We're right at 2 hours. Wow. We are right at 2 hours. Holy snapping crap. Amazing. So, you know, folks, if you're still watching, wow, there's some people that are. It's 428 that are watching. Amazing. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. If you're watching after the fact, and you've made it this far, comment below and let me know your thoughts, what you thought of the movie. Try to be mindful and maybe put like, if you're going to add a spoiler, put spoilers, you know, and then kind of do that, you know, enter, and then type it or something. But this is a spoiler review. And I guess, you know, people have to start taking accountability. If you're clicking on this and you haven't seen the movie and you're reading the comments and you haven't seen the movie, well, at the end of the day, it's like, fuck, you know, come on, man. You have nobody else to, you know, but like, come on, you know, go watch the fucking movie. It's on Peacock right now. It's in the theater. Go watch it. Come back, you know? So yeah, but tell me your thoughts on the movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What things worked for you? What things didn't work for you? You know, did you have some of the same issues that I had that seems to be that some familiar faces are having? Or did you not? Maybe you've seen it a couple of times and maybe you're like, no, it's not bothering me as much as it did, or as much as it's bothering you, or as much as I actually was okay with it. I actually like that. I actually like that line, you know? But yeah, there's some, I don't know if I want to say cringy, but there's definitely dialogue and moments and performances where I'm like, dare I say, it feels like acting, or I'm not sure I believe that. You know, there's a few moments that are like that. And I noticed that when watching the movie the first time. I just threw it right in the back of my head because I just wanted to enjoy this. You know, I've been waiting 3 years for this fucking thing and I wanted to enjoy it. You know what I mean? So, but it's really fascinating. It's really interesting. Another super chat. Oh, wait a minute. Darren says, missed a few super chats like mine again. I did, really? Well, thank you, Darren. I really appreciate you saying that. Let me go back and see if I can get that here. Sometimes that happens. YouTube is very, very strange. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes. Oh, yes. I see it here. Brandon Collins, Karen, I got that. Holiday Bros, Lee Brackett and Marion in this movie. Okay, I didn't get this one. This is $6.99. It's Canadian. He lives right here in Canada. Welcome, buddy. Holiday Bros says, loved Brackett and Marion in this movie. Just wish they did a little more with Marion, but happy they both went out swinging. Yeah. You know what? You know, and from a certain point of view, that's right. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, they went down. They fought, right? This is for Dr. Loomis. You know, I mean, some people had an issue with that line, and I think it's because I think people, again, you know, it all depends on the lens you're watching it through, and people are going to find that line. Some people are going to find that line, cringy, on the nose, and some people are going to be like, that was awesome. Oh, you know, it's fan service. It's great. You know, yeah, I see what you're saying. Darren Slaughtered Lamb sends in £5 and says, kind of obvious it was coming, but how did you find the tableau? Oh my God, that's right. Jesus. How did you find the tableau shot of Michael being apprehended? I thought it was a nice touch, full circle. Yes, absolutely. And he didn't get on his knees with his hands on his head. Now, I know they beat him down to his knees later on. but I thought that was I thought that was a great way to begin the movie. The cinematic tableau, Michael on the front lawn, Loomis on the porch behind him, the officers with their guns aimed at him, we're pulling back, and then boom, right into the credits, Halloween Kills. I love that. I thought that was great. Yeah, I really did. I thought that was great. I thought that was a really, really good a good moment, a nice callback. I thought it was done very classy, and the way everything was lit, everything, it looked like 1978. It was great. I'm telling you, for me, my favorite moments of this movie are the flashback and Lindsay's, chase, I guess. And the stuff in the Myers house at the end with Cameron and Allison, I quite liked. I thought that was pretty cool too. I forgot about that. Thank you, Darren. Jesus, damn it. I hate when I forget shit. Deontay Holloway sends in $4.99, says, do you think Karen actually died, or do you think it's something she visualized to add effect to Michael's window? It could be. It could very well be that. It could be just an illusion. Absolutely. It could just be, she could still be alive. It wouldn't surprise me. I hope she's not, because it makes things more interesting, but it wouldn't surprise me. Johnny Coffee. Oh, no, sorry. Cody Buchanan. Cody Buchanan sends in $5. Oh, no, I did read that one. That's the one I read. I jumped over the others. Johnny Coffee sends in $4.99, says, Dave, will you make a concept for Halloween Ends like you did Kills? Loved your concept, man. No, because like I said earlier, unless that was the one from earlier, my sequel concept called The Shape is really what Kills is. I mean, like in terms of that is my sequel to the 18 film. So I'm not going to go in and read and do my version of somebody else's film. I'm going to do my version of a sequel. So that's what I've done. So you can check it out. It's on my channel. Okay, I think did I get all the super chats now? I think I did. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I did. Whew. Oh, wait, another one comes in. Rotten Tomatoes Supreme Court. I love it. Sends in $5, says, how about instead of an epic reunion with Tommy and Laurie, Brackett slowly emerges from the darkness saying, hello, Laurie, in his pervy voice. Oh, yeah. Yeah, excuse me, Laurie. Or he comes into the hospital room and he's like, and he trips. Oh, excuse me, Laurie. Well, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare. That line that he says to Michael is, I didn't mind it. I could see somebody thinking it was cringeworthy. I could see somebody thinking it was a little kind of extra. But I didn't mind that. Like, out of all the what could be perceived as cringy lines, out of all the evil dies tonight, out of all the reminders that it's been 40 years, out of all the, some of the dialogue, hey, Michael, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare. That didn't bother me. That actually was probably maybe the best utilized throwback line in the movie. I understood the motivation of why the character would use it. I understood who this character was in relation to Michael and why it would be so important to kill this person for this character. It made sense. It made sense. It didn't bother me. There's a lot of other things that I thought felt less authentic. But yeah. Okay, folks, listen, that is going to do it for me here on this spoiler review, Halloween Kills spoiler review. Thank you to my amazing moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, and Chris Baber. Of course, Frank is not here today because he's actually in the middle of watching Halloween Kills right now. I'm very curious to hear what he's going to say. Don't forget to tune into the Slaughtered Lamb movie podcast tonight, hosted by my two great moderators, Frank Riker and Darren Sands. Tonight they have their thoughts on Halloween Kills. They're closing in on 1,000 subs. They're over 700. They have an awesome podcast. Darren, feel free to drop that link into the chat room. And folks, I'm telling you, go over and subscribe to them, follow them, check out their other Halloween content. I'm on a few of their shows. It's a lot of fun, a lot of good stuff, and I am eagerly waiting for their thoughts on Halloween 18 tonight. I will do my best to be in the chat room. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure to do that. Drop a link in there if you can, Darren. And comment below and let me know your thoughts, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. I'm going to try, although I didn't hit the record button, which really sucks. I wanted to break this up and upload certain segments of this to YouTube, like sometimes people do. I'm just not used to doing that, so maybe I can still do it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. And again, these are my, it's opening weekend, right? We're going to continue to talk about this as the days and weeks roll on. I'm going to be on Hallow Stream. I'm going to be talking to other people. I mean, we'll see where this movie settles for me as the weeks and months move ahead. But I didn't hate the movie. I guess I kind of feel similar about it that I did with 18, but maybe I just kind of smiled a bit more and liked the experience a bit more because I got some more of that Halloween-y thing. I think that's kind of where it's going to settle maybe for me. I wasn't blown away, but I don't know if I had to be, at the end of the day. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. And because I'd love to know. Folks, have a great rest of your Friday. Share this around for those of you that maybe you want other people to watch my shit. I don't know. And that's going to do it for me. Have a great rest of your Friday, and I will talk to you guys soon. Still marinating. Marination. All right. Kevin James, King of Queens. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.